This is the perfect car to have fun with, but you can also just daily drive them. It's the BMW Z4 and you might want to own one yourself, as they are pretty cheap. And if you now think something like,
It's such a good car, it's not good.
you're first of all wrong and a fucking idiot. Because even though they are pretty small, they are a blast to drive and look pretty good actually. But just a lot of people underestimate them. There are 3 generations of them, but we focus on the first one because the second gen prices start at about 12k. So I'd say they are too expensive for most of us. But the first gen still looks great, even though it was built from 2002 to 2008. So it's over 20 years old. And I mean, I get that it's not for everyone, because it does look unique to say the least, as it has this very long hood, as well as an unusual front design, and it looks a bit weird with the small rear and the busy side profile. You can also get these cars either as a soft top or as a coupe, but the coupe was only available since 2006. But let's get to the engines now, and they are all naturally aspirated. There only is one 2-liter 4-cylinder in the 2.0i with 150 horsepower, and it's definitely the slowest and also a bit less reliable and only a little better on gas mileage than the inline 6s. And speaking of inline 6s, there is a shitload of them for this car. There literally are 8 different versions. So you can get anything from 2.2 to 3.3 liters with about 170 to 343 horsepower. And they're also great in reliability with just basic maintenance. And they are quite a bit more fun, because they are just faster and sound decent. So I would argue that an inline 6 is the best option for these cars. The big argument for that is of course gas mileage. So the inline 4s use about 7.5 liters or get about 31 miles per gallon, and the inline 6s, depending on the displacements of course, still just use 8.3 to 12 liters, so they get about 20 to 28 miles per gallon. And of course you can get quite a bit less on the highways, and that's still pretty good, come on. And to combine the choice of engine and transmission, you should really know what you want the car for. For example, do you just want a comfortable daily, a weekend cruiser, or do you want to just have fun with it? Because there's 5-speed automatic transmissions, but they still have a manual mode so you can pedal shift them, and they are decent in reliability and definitely more relaxing and easy to drive. But then there also are 6-speed manuals for a whole lot of fun, because in a sports car, a manual transmission is very engaging and they're also very reliable. But the craziest thing about these engines is that they are super reliable, so these cars are also pretty cheap to own and maintain, as the only really common issues are small things for the most part. So of course on the convertible you should look out for leaks, because these soft tops can always break, but because the motor is placed where water can get in over time, it might just die and then the roof stops working, which is an expensive fix, for about 500 bucks. But something you can do is either refurbish a broken engine and also relocate it, so it's safe from the water. And the pretty common issues with them is that the handbrakes aren't the best, so you might roll back on the 6th click, which is for the most part just annoying. Also if the water drains are blocked, you can harm the hood motor. They can also have a clunking steering wheel and coolant loss, and some had rusty brake lines even with lower mileage, and broken rear springs are also pretty common. And now a problem that regards safety actually, the non-xenon lights aren't really bright, so they won't help you much at night. Then also if you're unlucky, the mirror glasses can fall out, and overall that's not a lot after 20 years. And combining that with decent fuel economy, there isn't much cost after basic maintenance like oil changes. So if you now want to drive your money around instead of letting it sit somewhere, you should decide what engine and transmission you want first. Because when you buy one, prices start at about 4k, but you can't always get the spec you actually want. But sometimes these cars also go for like 2 or 3k. And regardless, you can always negotiate the price, which is a lot easier with private sellers. But they can also rip you off easily. And if you want lower mileage cars, or let's say less high, you can expect to pay about 5 to 8k, which is still pretty good. And I really think they can be worth it, as they're actually rising in value for the past few years, and they are already on the bottom of depreciation. So you can't really lose any money. And as you can do a lot of work yourself on them, they can definitely be a fun project car too. And of course you can just save a good amount of money doing maintenance yourself. The only actual compromise with an E85 Z4 is the interior storage, as there's like close to nothing. You get this very little center compartment, which is super hard to reach. Then the glove box is probably too small for fucking gloves. And in those mini door cards, you're lucky if you can get a ladder in them. And you get no cup holders. But the trunk sort of makes up for that, as it's actually pretty big, and you can fit a good amount of luggage back there. But the interior looks pretty cool and very clean though, and it doesn't look as dated as you would expect maybe, as the materials are nice and the space is pretty good, though there isn't much going on there. So for the most part, it's just simple. But I mean, the window switches are in a very awkward spot, which can be super annoying while driving, and the car has no screens or modern infotainment system. But somehow they still have pretty good speakers and of course an aux port, so you can still plug your phone on them and play some good music. And another thing that can be annoying is that the standard seats don't offer a lot of support, so you might slide around in corners, if you're too fast basically. But the ride generally is very comfortable where you need it to be and a lot of fun if you want it to. Though they're rather soft overall, but the steering still is responsive. And even though the engines offer a good amount of power and they are rear-wheel drive, it's pretty hard to drift them as they have a super weird differential. I guess they did it for safety, which makes sense actually. And of course with the soft top, you can get that extra bit of joy when the weather is nice. Pretty cool bonus. So honestly, I think the Z4 E85 is definitely worth buying as they are pretty cool and cheap cars that are a whole lot of fun and still somewhat practical and definitely reliable. So the final question, do you think they are better or worse than the Mazda MX-5 Miata? Because those two often get compared, so comment down below what you think about them. But I myself really like them and actually see them as a fun option of cars that I would buy myself in the near future. Right on the list with an Audi A5 B8 and the E38 7 Series. Links to those videos in the top right corner if you want to check those out too. And on that note, I hope you liked the video and enjoy the rest of your day, so I'll see you again next time.